Netflix's Riot Games' League of Legends' Arcane is the greatest show I have ever seen in my life. Except for the parts where the pacing is all over the place, the character motivations are confusing and borderline don't make sense, and a lot of it builds up to League of Legends fan service. I've seen the show get championed around as if it changed episodic storytelling forever, and I have concluded that Arcane is a decent show that is very much a victim of the internet hype machine. There's certain releases that come out and get completely swept up by hardcore fan bases. These are often projects that have taken years to come out, ages. They really want this franchise that they love to continue, and they want to introduce others to it so they can share in the experience. It all comes from a positive standpoint, but the expectations can become completely overblown. It is no longer an option for this project to just be decent. The reaction has to be extreme. We waited 19 years for Metroid Dread. It's pretty good, but I mean, it does have some flaws. No! This is absolute peak of the Metroid franchise. And then people who are new to it try to come in. They experience a decent game and think, well, if that was the peak of the franchise, I guess maybe Metroid's not for me. League fans have been waiting for Arcane for about 6 years, which is pretty huge for a 9-episode season of TV. The hype was real for them, but I'd be lying if I said there wasn't any non-League fan hype for this show. One of the main things you hear about Arcane is that it can be fully enjoyed with no prior knowledge of the game, and I don't think I agree with that 100%. My point in this whole rant is to say that Overhype not only hurts the experience for new players or TV watchers, but also future entries of your franchise. Blowing smoke up the writers' asses can have very bad implications when they end up thinking they can do no wrong. Any criticism online for Arcane that I find, even if somebody rates it like an 8 out of 10, a very good score, it is disliked to oblivion. That being said, Arcane is a pretty good show, but I am gonna criticize the hell out of it. I'm also gonna spoil like crazy. Apologies for this, but really, if you haven't bought into the hype by now, you probably won't care. I'll start by saying this show had me hooked for the first 3 episodes. The benefit of adapting from a video game is that the world comes pre-built. Now you just have to animate it. The animation is probably the most interesting thing about this show. It's genuinely unique and really pretty. We focus on a tight-knit group of underdog characters living in the slums while the rich and the privileged control it all from above. It's a tried and true setup to an epic sci-fi fantasy story. We spend this time getting attached to the main character's friends and new dad so they can explode to death in episode 3. I really wanted to not spoil anything in this video, but it's basically impossible to avoid this, because it's quite literally the inciting incident of the show. But it is a spoiler because it happens a third of the way through the show. A typical story would do this in episode 1. In most shows, you're gonna see a death happen in the first episode, setting up the story, the second to last episode, kicking off the finale, or the last episode being the finale itself. I call this the dead zone. And outside of this, Arcane follows the dead zone rule well. That's because there's rarely a reason to do it in the middle unless a character's arc is still going left over from a previous season or something. Killing a character to kick off the story when we're already 3 episodes in, yes, it's definitely a big surprise, but it retroactively makes the whole show up to this point kind of a waste of time. Jinx isn't the first character whose story gets kicked off by dead parents. Another example is Jinx from the TV show Arcane, where we see her nameless parents die in the first scene of the first episode. Oh, that's interesting, so they just do it again, but this time her friends die too, and technically it's her fault because of her blue orb of death thing, which we'll talk about later. But I should say this scene was definitely emotionally effective. When I first saw it, my jaw almost hit the floor like, wow, that's ballsy, they really did that. I was beginning to see why people became so attached to this show. The biggest problem here is that with all these deaths comes another death. The show's pacing. The reason it's a ballsy move is that you now have to commit to taking the story in an entirely different direction because half the cast is gone, and if that risk doesn't pay off, maybe that emotional climax wasn't worth it. Think about this. Jinx's second dad's death, that might hold a lot more emotional weight because of the time we spent with him, but story-wise, it accomplishes the exact same thing as her real dad's death that we watched for 2 seconds at the beginning of the show, literally before the intro even plays. It kicks off the story, that's all. Let's take an example from another show. I'm gonna spoil season 1 of Game of Thrones. You have 10 years, I'm not gonna feel that bad. Eddard Stark's death is one that knocks it out of the park from an emotional and plot standpoint. People didn't see Jon Snow as the main character in season 1. It was this guy. It happens on episode 9, right in that dead zone. So practically the whole season was about him, and he influences a lot of things during that time. He doesn't just exist as a nice guy so you can feel bad when he gets taken away. This doesn't trigger a huge time skip where we have to reestablish every character and start all over again. It starts a stressful season finale that influences so many major characters for the rest of the show. Now, where does Arcane go from here? 3 out of 6 episodes were just spent on the main characters Jinx and Vi, sisters who were ripped apart and broken up when Jinx accidentally blew up their second dad. Now there's 6 episodes left, and we need to get to what the show's really about. Blue orbs. These are magic MacGuffins that are also science, and they can blow up dads, but also they power things and they're gonna change the world. It's typical blue orb stuff. The main guys around them were definitely established. They had a little bit of a plot in Act 1, Jace and Victor. But aside from who they are and how they want to use blue orbs to advance technology, they don't do much else in Act 1. Why? Because they're waiting for a time skip so their plot can actually start while we're busy spending time with a guy with a bomb strapped to his chest. I'll be real, as a viewer, I found it very hard to care about the blue orb plot or the characters involved. It's so detached from the sisters plot and dull in comparison. I just wanted to see Vi and Jinx again. Vi barely shows up in episode 4, but we do get a decent amount of time seeing Jinx's new life with dad number 3, who is totally not evil and looks like someone I would trust with my life. The rest of the time is spent reintroducing characters that we'll never care as much about as the sisters. Like Mel. So Mel is a high councilwoman who falls in love with Jace for no reason and helps him rise to power even though he doesn't want to. Like, she suggests that he should be on the high council too, and he's like, wait, what? No. And everyone else votes like, sure, makes sense to me. And just like that, he's in charge of the whole city. Well, partially. We don't quite know Mel's motivations yet, but I was definitely asking questions at this point. Like, wow, she's really doing everything for him. Why? Another basically new character is Caitlyn. Caitlyn is a cop. Alright, so next episode is more about Vi as Caitlyn breaks her out of jail to help search for the third dad because he's evil. Vi hates cops. Cops took her away from her sister and have always been a constant problem for her and those close to her. She doesn't like Caitlyn. She's only helping so she can find Jinx. Guess if they fall in love later for no reason. Oh, but first, an entire Imagine Dragons music video. Like, the actual band shows up and actually sings a whole song while some stuff happens. Hey, I'm all about cutting scenes to music. I love watching and doing that. It's very satisfying when it works. And I understand they're playing to their strengths because this studio used to make music videos. For Imagine Dragons even. But I don't know, this scene, I think it's the fact that they're singing the main theme to the show. So it's already pretty meta, but then it's the actual people from real life in this universe. It just takes you out of it. The whole thing is out of place. Heimerdinger is another important character acting as a sort of mentor to Jace and Victor. He thinks that what they're doing with blue orbs has a lot of potential to propel humanity forward, but it needs way more time. He's lived for hundreds of years. He's seen generations of humans go by since he founded this city. He's seen what old magic did to people and how destructive the blue orbs can be in the wrong hands. Even we, the audience, have seen that. Jace wants to rush into things to save lives, and Heimerdinger won't let him. So Jace, who's been on the council for 2 episodes, out of nowhere says, let's vote this old fart out of here, and everyone else votes like, yeah, sure, it makes sense to me. This really solidified my hatred for Jace and Mel. In my opinion, they're the most poorly developed characters on the show. Like, sure, Jinx is like a murderous monster, but you see where she came from and you just want her back. Like, you're on Vi's side, right? She's a good villain. But these two, it's like they're just rich assholes who think they know everything. Why am I supposed to care about these guys at all? They're like the worst. I mean, this has to be the dumbest high council I've ever seen on TV. This guy doesn't know anything and didn't even want to be here in the first place. The explanation for this, according to fans, is either that the council is corrupt, which is just a vague statement, or Mel pressured them because I guess she has more power, which to me translates to the writers wanted this to happen. By the way, where does Mel get that power? Why is she so important? We still don't know anything about her or her motivation. And we know even less about the other council members. Like, I don't even know what the bottom half of these guys look like. They only exist in this room. Anyway, we see Vi and Jinx reunite. Vi just wants to talk, but Jinx is fully Harley Quinn now and just goes more insane. I still like these two. I still want to see what happens with them. I'm still watching. But man, I just hate those other guys.
Was that why you came? For this stupid stone? Oh, I don't even know what that is.
It starts with a rap music video and a character reveal, Echo. So here's this kid who actually did appear in Act 1. He didn't do much, but he was a friend of the two sisters. We spend most of this episode just establishing what he's been doing this whole time. Why are we adding more to the story that already has a pacing problem? Act 3 is supposed to be the wrap-up. At this point, I'm getting worried about where we're going. I still only really care about the sisters, but at least now Caitlyn is a core member of that story, and I'm actually warming up to her. The only thing with her is that she still hates Vi, but I just know the writers are gonna force them into a baseless relationship, but not yet. Dad 3 calls the meeting of like 5 new characters who look like they should be in Fortnite, and they talk about something I just refuse to care about. I think they're like the low council, like the equivalent of the high council, but for underground people. Why are they showing up here for the first time in the series? I don't know. I don't care. The episode ends with a fight against Echo and Jinx. It's directed like a music video once again, and it is pretty cool. The dude whips out a pocket watch and does like a time travel move to pin her down, and then they both explode. Wait. What do you mean he does a time travel move? Is he using blue orb? What is this? And this is when I came to a major revelation. He's a League of Legends, isn't he? Oh, so all this buildup was fan service. The scene was shot to make this pocket watch a major reveal, and I can see all the League of Legends fans going crazy like, oh, it's his thing. Yo, he's about to do the thing that he does. But as a non-fan, I'm just confused. Where the hell did this power come from? I checked the wiki and it just nonchalantly mentions that he invented it himself. He invented time travel. Stuff like that doesn't matter in a game about 100 different characters with their own gimmicks, but when you try to tell a story, things are gonna get very stupid. So Vi's trademark in the game is her gauntlets powered by blue orbs. And the show does a lot to establish how that all comes together, and it makes sense within the story. But you simply cannot do that with everyone when all the characters in your game have some crazy weird gimmick. It leads to another issue with the show. Everyone's a freaking genius who can make anything out of anything. If blue orbs are the most powerful thing ever made, then what about the pink goo? That seems to do more or less the same thing, and whatever's powering the pocket watch must be pretty amazing too. How many nondescript super materials can one show have? It all starts to get muddled together and just makes me care even less. And this whole thing just made me start guessing, who else is a League of Legends? Is Caitlyn gonna start having superpowers? Am I already supposed to know about Mel and that's why she's so confusing? I don't know. But I'm starting to get annoyed at all the fans who told me I didn't have to know about League to enjoy this. Anyway, 2 more episodes left. You're not gonna believe what the second to last episode starts with. It's Mel's entire backstory. I'm gonna be completely honest, I thought either she was a character from the game and I was supposed to know about her already, or she was gonna be evil the whole time. That's why she's so good at pulling all the strings, that's why falling in love with Jace made no sense. Surely she was just using him, forcing him into a high position and kicking out the old guy who wanted to do things smartly. Surely she has some grand plan. That's the only thing that would make all these frustrating moments in the story work. So Mel isn't actually from League of Legends. She is a new original character. Her backstory is that her mom was a cruel ruler and never believed in her. Mel's goal and motivation is to prove herself as a strong leader and to prove her mom wrong by not partaking in those cruel ways. I mean, it's something. But why is this not 5 episodes earlier? What narrative reason did you have to hide this information until now? I don't know. But hey, that mom character? She shows up here and is now a major character on the show from here on out. All 1.5 episodes left. They really went and started a whole new plotline right in the middle of the last act of the show. Jinx has 1 minute of screen time in this episode. I think this might be my least favorite one of the season because it's just when all of my fears for this show really came true. Vi and Caitlyn are now best friends just in time for them to break up in the same episode. Vi has this fallen hero moment where she gives up, and Caitlyn, who she nicknamed Cupcake, is like, "But what about us?" And Vi's like, "You just have to forget all about me, ugh." Like they've had this deep emotional relationship or something. Well, I ain't buying. Anyway, Vi doesn't actually leave and she just finds Jace somehow and then says, "Hey, we gotta kill Dad 3. And then he says, "Okay, you're right. Good thing I've been building this massive hammer with a gun on it and I'm really good at fighting now." Turns out he's a League of Legends too. Skye also dies in this episode. Oh, who's Skye? She's a character who has had maybe 4 lines of dialogue in the whole show. She walks in on Victor trying to, I think, mutate himself with the hex core and the goo. She grabs him and vaporizes for some reason. I really don't understand what exactly made this happen, and I ended up asking about it online on Reddit. The funny thing is, I got multiple different explanations. Skye didn't have the protection that came from the infamous purple goo, so the hex core's energy destroyed her. The hex core did not recognize her as part of Victor, hence it got rid of her like the plants. The hex core was likely going to destroy him until Skye grabbed him and took the blast instead. Well, the hex core already received Victor blood, so Victor was spared. Skye didn't, so she disintegrated, obviously. An old classic film called The Fantastic Planet had a line ref, "Monsters from the id." But spoilers, I thought Skye was killed partly by Victor's lack of protection, if not outright subconsciously removing a complication. What? Look, the point is, I'm not the only one confused about this, so it makes me feel a little bit better. Once again, these super materials can kinda just do whatever. And clearly Skye was just yet another character developed for the sole purpose of dying so someone else can be sad. Except this time the audience doesn't care and we're not even sure why it happened. Next episode. Honestly, I'm so burnt out. I didn't think this video would be this long when I started, but we just gotta get through it, man. This is the last one. So that Fortnite guy tries to assassinate Dad 3, but then Dad 3 kills him first. Another completely useless character just dies. I don't even know what to say. That he lasted 2 episodes? Okay. Echo and Heimerdinger stick together, cause I guess they're both outcasts. So, alright, they'll do something in season 2. Jace says, "Hey, that old guy we kicked out was probably right. How about we just make peace with the underground, you know?" And then everyone in the council's like, no way, no, not in a million years, no. But then the conversation gets interrupted when we break for like a 12-minute straight scene of Vi and Jinx confronting each other. Oh my god.
That's what we've been waiting for!
I don't have much negative to say about this scene. It's long, intense, and the culmination of basically everything worth caring about in the show. It all ends with Jinx going crazy and killing her dad again. This is probably the most successful death on the show. I was not expecting it at all. I felt bad for Jinx again. And from a plot standpoint, this actually changes everything. Vi failed at what she set out to do. Jinx messed up horribly and is going more insane by the second. She fires a rocket at the council and then the end. Just when the rocket comes in, it looks like the council is actually about to vote in favor of peace with the underground, which is nice and ironic, but like, how did they come to this conclusion? Because the very last scene was them screaming about how we can't do that. I don't know. They're all about to explode anyway. What does it matter? And that is Arcane. I hope I'm not crazy. There's barely any negativity on the show online, so it kind of makes me think I'm going insane. Or I'm just an idiot. I'm sure people will correct me on a few things in this video, but again, it's not a bad show. I just think there's a decent amount of rushed plot convenience, and a lot can be cut out to make room to fix stuff like that. The first act is great on its own, but it retroactively falls apart when everyone in it either dies or completely transforms into a new character. Story-wise, I think a lot of that act could have been stuffed into one episode, and then, you have 2 more you can spend fixing the stuff that feels rushed or forced. Show us Mel's backstory at the beginning, not the end. That's so backwards. And also, don't add a bunch of new characters in the very end either. I don't care about them. The last act of the show is not for establishing new things. That's like one of the most basic understandings of writing. Hopefully the payoff will be that season 2 can get started a lot quicker now that this stuff is all set, but the cost of diluting this story is not worth it in my eyes. But apparently I'm alone on that. Regardless, it's nice that we have an adult animation with its own style, a lot of money behind it, it's got strong female leads, which is great because we know how much Riot Games respects women. Yeah. There's another thing that doesn't make me feel great when I watch this show. I'm supporting the guys who made League of Legends. I'm sorry to any Arcane fan who watches this, but some of you people need to watch more shows. I see this getting tons of praise for the most basic, ancient practices in filmmaking. Here's a video where a guy takes 5 minutes to literally say that the characters emote in this show, and that's why it hooks you in 6.12 seconds, I guess. The technique that makes Arcane so good. It's foreshadowing and narrative cohesion. Things that have been in every piece of media since ever. A 10-minute video on why that ending wasn't a cliffhanger. Like, dude, it cuts to black literally in the middle of action. It's a cliffhanger. It's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, but it's a cliffhanger. It's like everybody's pretending that this show is so much more than it is. This is how you know something's overhyped, when people just overblow the most basic writing practices and tell you, Arcane is a masterpiece and here's why. Alright, last one. This is my favorite. It's from the subreddit. Yo, this scene got me low-key emotional. And then it's a picture of a girl about to get her head chopped off. Hey, low-key, anyone else feel emotional when you see a character get murdered in front of your eyes? That was pretty crazy how the writers pulled that off. Alright, I'm just taking the piss at this point, but I hope you see where I'm coming from. See, if the writers themselves start to believe all this hype, that they're masters of their craft, who can do no wrong, who knows how season 2 will end up. Don't send me death threats, alright? Thanks for watching, even if you hate me. You watch the whole thing, like, that's pretty cool. If you want to get more upset, check out my video on Metroid Dread, where I say kind of the same thing. Whatever. Yeah, we're chilling here. We're just doing it.